It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
What's up, hockey fans? This is The Big Show. I'm Michael Traikos, and Katie Goss is not with us today, so I am in the host chair, and with me, as always, we've got Ryan Kennedy, and happy to have back our Ottawa site editor, Steve Warne, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot of Battle of Ontario. This is our playoff preview. The playoffs are right around the corner, happening on Saturday, so let's get right to it. And like I said, we've got Steve Warne here. Steve, Battle of Ontario, I'm expecting a really physical playoff round between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. I believe last time they played each other was 2004. Let's get right down to it. How many fights are we going to see in this series? I've got the over-under line at 3. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. Will that be Brady Tkachuk in the opening faceoff where you have one down right away, as he did at the Four Nations? I'm going to go over. I think the emotion of this thing, the players may not naturally have the emotion because they were all in diapers, most of them, small children, when the last Battle of Ontario playoff style happened. So I think it will start out, there'll be an excitability like every playoff series has, but I think they'll feed off the media and fan energy from those who remember the early Battle of Ontario. So I'm going over.
Yeah. Ryan?
You know what? I was going to say under, but I'm going to go over as well because I'm thinking about how long this series is going to be. And you're going to get a couple that are just going to be organic, especially later in the series. But yeah, I'm sure Brady Tkachuk is going to want to drop him. Max Domi is going to want to drop him. Probably not against Brady Tkachuk. That would not be well advised. But I do think that it's going to be an interesting series because you have this young Senators team that is so exciting and they have such great physical tools. But they're going to have to be careful because you do not want to put Toronto on the power play. The Leafs have been so lethal of late with the man advantage. So there's going to be a little bit of restraint, I would say, in terms of how Travis Green's troops get out there, because you don't want to put yourself in an early hole trying to establish a physical advantage.
See, that's a good point, Ryan, because I don't know if playing a physical brand of hockey really favors the Leafs. Like, I see this as a, Toronto playing Florida a couple years ago, playing that physicality didn't work well in the Leafs' favors. Steve, is that a game, like that physical game? Is that one where the Senators think that, they could really suck Toronto into playing a style that really messes with them?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Leafs stars prefer their time and space, and that physicality could get them off their game. And I think it behooves the Sens to stay out of the box at the same time, because those same skill guys, if they get power play time, they can do some serious damage out there. And you mentioned Max Domi. He could be a real wild card in this series because he can give you that pushback, that edge. And Brady Tkachuk's going to be an interesting character in this series because he is an emotional guy. He's like a dog that's never been walked before, and they let the door open and he's ready to go now. I think Domi could really get under Brady Tkachuk's skin, and that's a good thing for the Leafs when Brady Tkachuk is serving 5 in the box.
Well, let's talk about Tkachuk because since the Four Nations, a lot of the talk has been about, is he healthy? And even going into the playoffs, there are concerns as to, is he 100%? Is he close to 100%? What can you tell us about, the health of Brady Tkachuk, and is it going to be a factor in terms of the style he wants to play? Because, very much like his older brother, Matthew, Tkachuk drags that rest of the Senators team into the fight. So does he need to be the catalyst and the guy that's starting things?
He absolutely needs to be the catalyst. He's waited 7 years of his career for this. He's tailor-made for the playoffs, and that's the question. We just don't know the answer. Right now, he missed 8 games at the end of the season, came back last night, and actually left the game against Carolina, but they kind of sloughed it off. It's all good, no problem. So it's certainly something to monitor, because if you recall, he got dinged up at the Four Nations, and he was playing with something. He was playing through that. And then 2.5 weeks ago in Pittsburgh, he suffered an additional injury on top of that. It had nothing to do with the Four Nations injury, and that kept him out for the next 8 games. So where does actually being, injured give way to giving this guy, some time to rest and recover, the standard stuff you do with stars at the end of the season? It really is going to be something to monitor in the early part of this series. Certainly adrenaline will get him going in the first 2-3 games of the series. It will be interesting to see over the long haul whether Brady Tkachuk's body can hold up. Sens fans certainly hope it can.
Now, Ryan, the Leafs don't have a Brady Tkachuk. Like, a few teams do, obviously. The guy's a unicorn. I guess Matthew Knies might be the closest thing to a guy that plays that style. Not that he's going to make, I don't think, the impact. But for Toronto, who are you looking at as a sort of X factor, or a guy that, does necessarily has to, prove something this series?
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, you talk about Matthew Knies and the way he played, particularly in the second half. I mean, he might be that difference maker because the Leafs don't have a lot of north-south guys. And Knies has shown that he can be that physical presence. He can score in bunches, and he fits really well, on a top two line. But when I think about the Leafs and their chance for playoff success and their chance for making a long run, I look at Chris Tanev, and this was a guy that, to me, if they could have acquired him years ago, that would have been for the best, because he always felt like that missing puzzle piece. Like, they didn't have a stopper like a Chris Tanev. Now they do, and now they have great goaltending as well. So I think that, even though he doesn't have anything to prove, we know what Chris Tanev can bring to the table. This is the great opportunity for him to really slot in that Toronto lineup and give the Leafs that edge defensively, where if you're up a goal with 20 seconds to go, there's a good chance he's jumping in front of whatever puck is thrown at the Toronto net. And sometimes that's the difference in a series, is just that one goal, that one game.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like, obviously, when I'm looking at the Leafs, I think so much attention is going to be on Mitch Marner. And, well, will he show up this playoffs? And if he doesn't, what does that mean for him re-signing with the Leafs? But, the guy in Ottawa that I imagine is going to see a lot of Marner, is going to see a lot of Matthews, and that Matthew Knies line is Jake Sanderson, Steve. And this guy has made a huge jump up this year. I might even have him on my 5-name ballot for the Norris when I'm filling it out. That's how highly I think he played this year. How much of a load is he going to be under facing that top line that Toronto's got?
Yeah, I mean, they want him out there in all situations. There's no question about that. And I mean, he's not the shutdown classic style, like super physical and elite defensively. But what he is his ability to know where to be on the ice, always on the right side of the puck. And any errors that guy makes, his skating is so good. Like, whether you're talking about a long back check, so a long race for the puck, or that short little trek to the corner from the slot to the corner, like, he has got such elite skating. That's really what serves him well. Great stick. And yeah, he's going to be out there in all situations, not just in trying to slow that line down, but providing a lot of offense from the back end as well. He's really been elite, and I don't blame you for having him in the Norris discussion.
Oh, I'm sure you don't. All right, let's go predictions for the series. I've got Leafs in 6. No surprise me. All year long I've been Toronto. But how do you guys see this, Ryan? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm saying Leafs in 6. Either Ottawa takes game 1, or the Leafs come out very strong and win the first couple, and then the Senators kind of find their footing, but it's too late. But ultimately, I think Leafs in 6.
I can't do it. I'm going Sens in 6. How about that?
Nice.
6 too. Wow.
I do worry about the matchups in Toronto with last change. The Sens have got a bottom pairing D right now. The guys, they haven't played a lot of hockey, and Nicholas Matinpalo and Tyler Klevin. If in fact Travis Green goes with that duo, they might bring in the old warhorse Travis Hammond. It remains to be seen. But there are some matchups I don't love, and because Toronto has home advantage, that's a concern for sure. But you talk about a 3-0 record against them this year. They clearly match up pretty well against them. I'm not saying 3-0 in the regular season is the be-all, end-all. It's not. but it's at least a little indicator that this club can skate with them. And I really feel like the ghosts of playoffs past, as it always seems to, will get into the Leafs kitchen, and those same superstar players, they'll let it get to them again. And that's what it comes down to. Is like, is the failure of the past going to serve the Leafs well, or are they just a flawed team? And I'm betting on the latter.
Ooh, harsh words from the man from Ottawa. I love it. All right, let's move on to Washington, Montreal. Montreal took them till the final game of their season to qualify for the playoffs, and now people are thinking, could this be, 2011 all over again, where Jaroslav Halak upsets the Caps? Ryan, what do you think about this series? Is Samuel Montembeault, is he going to be channeling Jaroslav Halak? And the youngsters in Montreal, do they have enough in them to kind of run the table and go on a Cinderella run?
I will say that, if you look at Montembeault's goals saved above expected, he was one of the best in the league this year. And I did almost consider, does he deserve maybe, we don't vote on the Vezina, but we vote on All-Stars. I was like, man, is he the third goalie? Ultimately, I went a different direction. But, Montreal, very exciting. And they do have some experience, right? Suzuki, Caulfield, Gallagher, they had a number of guys that were on that weird pandemic run to the final team. So yeah. they have been there before. But part of me is also thinking, don't overthink this. Washington was a really good team all year long. They dealt with the Ovechkin goals chase in a positive way. That could have been a drag on them, but it wasn't. They dealt with him being out of the lineup, and they were fine. They have excellent goaltending now. So I think that this will be a good learning experience for Montreal. And I know a lot of people are saying that. I think the Habs are kind of the fun upset pick right now.
Yeah,
but
I'm picking them upset.
Yeah, Washington's really good. I'm a chalk guy. I'm very conservative when it comes to rankings and things like that. So I'm still going Washington, but I love that the Habs are in it. And those games in Montreal are going to be super fun.
You make a good point. Washington's been in first place in the Metro for ever. I think it's basically the first day of the season. Steve, how do you see this shaking up? Can Montreal, do the impossible?
I always have a little bit. I know the answer is to your question is no. I think I've been impressed with them getting themselves back in a playoff position, because you go back to December, they were the worst team in the Eastern Conference for a time. And I'm always a little, I guess maybe it's the Hamburglar run effect. When you go on that run near the end of the season and basically play playoff level hockey all through the end of the regular season to get a playoff spot. Now you have to elevate again for the postseason. I'm always a little leery of those teams. Not that it's a perfect theory, but it certainly plays out quite a bit. And I think that may be in play here. Like you mentioned, Michael, the Capitals have been rolling for a long time at a high level. And I think that this is going to be a really quick series. So you and I are a bit at odds in this one. I think the Capitals will handle this one pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a feeling, just with Demidov being called up or coming over from Russia, Lane Hudson, every time I see him, just impresses me more and more. I could see him being one of those guys we're going, wow, this guy next year is going to be a Norris Trophy candidate. That's how special he was. So, maybe I'm wrong. I'm picking Habs in 7. I think that'll be fun. How do you guys see it? I guess I'm the only one probably picking the Habs.
Yeah, for me, I would say Washington probably in 5 or 6. Hudson will be interesting, because what will he look like in a playoff scenario where there's not as much room to skate? Maybe he still is that dynamic little guy that can find the space, but it's going to be interesting when things get heavier, especially in his own end, what kind of impact he can have.
Yeah, I'm the same. I worry about Hudson. It's a situation where, maybe Caulfield he's a small player too, although Hudson's might be even smaller in terms of weight. The guy's 160 pounds.
Yeah.
Love the guys, but, water bug defensemen in the playoffs, you don't see it too often in terms of great success. Defensively, how will he fare as referees put their whistles away, as they always tend to? So he's definitely a guy to watch in terms of, can he at least maintain what he's been doing, which the Habs would take all day long. But no, I really feel like the Capitals are in charge here, and I got them in 5.
I'll end it with something that Johnny Gaudreau told me in 2016 when he was at the World Cup. You can't hit speed, okay? You can't catch it. All right, let's go Tampa Bay, Florida. We got the Battle of Florida here, probably the underrated battle, but at the same time, I don't know how many of these guys are going to be, walking straight after this series. We got the battle of the goaltenders, Vasilevskiy and Bobrosky. Both have been known to really ramp it up. I don't know who you would pick as the better goaltender in this series, but are we expecting a goalie duel? Is this kind of how it's going to shake up? What do you guys think?
I certainly do. I think that, we know it's going to be a physical series. We know there's a ton of skill involved in the series on both sides. But when I think about playoff Bob, like, he's just another entity for the most part. And that's why they have a championship. And that's why they had gone to the final of the year before. And with Vasilevskiy, he's had a couple of ups and downs in the past couple of years, but a lot of that can be explained away by how much hockey he had played in those back-to-back wins, in all those runs to the final. Now it feels like, after that injury, he's had the reset. He's back to being the big cat. But I'll also say, like, these teams know each other so well. Like, there are no surprises. They hate each other. It's a great rivalry. And it's just going to be super fun, especially when you toss in a Brad Marchand on that Florida lineup, just to make it a little spicier. Not that it even needed to be. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is not a low-scoring series, but I think it's going to be a super tight series and really a coin flip. But for me, I think Florida's going to come out ahead. Wouldn't be surprised if it's in 7.
It's a weird series because we haven't seen Matthew Tkachuk. It feels like forever. Aaron Ekblad is also going to be missing. So the Cats are definitely going to be, I almost don't know what I'm going to be expecting for game 1. Steve, how do you figure, the grit and I guess the pestiness of Florida? How is that going to match up against a Tampa team that still has a Brandon Hagel? They still play kind of a heavy brand of hockey. Is this sort of like Toronto, Ottawa in that regard, or do you see it a little different?
Yeah, maybe. It's just such an even match. Like they're both. It's the tragedy of the 2-3, right? It's the same in the West.
Yeah.
These are two legit Stanley Cup contenders, and Florida's been just okay lately. But some guys were resting, some guys were hurt, and they're getting everybody back. Yeah, it's a really difficult one to call. I mean, my Cup winner is coming out of this series. We'll talk about that later, but. I mean, I have so much respect for both of the coaches here. And I think the in-series adjustments that they'll be able to pull off. And when you talk about the defense, I think this could be one of those series. We have 2 elite teams. You have a 1-0 game, one game, a 5-4 game the next. I think it's going to be just a fantastic series. And I agree with Ryan. Total flip of the coin, and really anything could happen here. And I'm really looking forward to this one.
It could be a battle of the post-game press conferences. Like, who's going to fill your notebook faster, Maurice or Cooper? I'm taking Tampa in 7 on this one, and I'm with you, Steve. My Stanley Cup winner does come out of the series as well. So I guess I kind of gave it away. Sorry.
Well, I'm the same way.
Spoiler.
Yeah. I think you got a situation here where I feel like between the two teams, Tampa has got a new hunger again. They went to the Cup final, like what was it? 3 out of 4 years, and they won a couple of cups in there. And I think, they faded a little bit. They made some changes. Stamkos moves on. Other guys elevate, like you mentioned it, like a Hagel. I really feel, and Kucherov looks like a man possessed right now. Vasilevsky's a better goalie. This team just seems like it's got a renewed hunger, whereas the Cats have been recently fed.
Yeah, too many options for me on Tampa. Like Gensel's we saw him at the Four Nations. All the guy does is score important goals. Ryan, how do you think it's going to shake down?
I'm going to go Florida in 7 because they will get Ekblad back after game 2. And then you figure, Seth Jones was like technically Ekblad's replacement. Now they got both of them. And they have Gustav Forsling. They have that depth on D that it was a question mark earlier this season, but in bringing in Seth Jones, you have a guy that can give you 23, 24 minutes a night and not break a sweat. And now he's in a good situation where he has a lot of support around him. I do think it's going to be an excellent series. And I will say overall, you mentioned Jake Gensel and the Four Nations. I think that Four Nations tournament, it's going to be very interesting to see how certain players were impacted by their participation, whether it's a Mitch Marner, a Jake Sanderson, even like Montembeault. He didn't play, but he was there. I think that's going to be very interesting to see. Brady Tkachuk would be another one. Guys that maybe had something to prove or don't have a lot of playoff experience, how they will take those experiences and put them forward. But yeah, ultimately, I just feel like Florida, they still got it. I just don't think, and again, spoiler on the brackets, I don't think they're going to go as far this year because it's just too much hockey.
Nice. We're not going to go in depth on Carolina and New Jersey because, we knew this matchup was happening and we've already discussed it on past shows, but let's just go, pick who you think. I'm picking. I know New Jersey fans aren't going to like this. I see a sweep, and I'm picking Carolina in 4. Steve, how do you think?
I'll go Carolina in 5, and that's only if Markstrom plays out of his mind for that one win.
That one win, right?
Yeah, I'll go Carolina in 5. I'll say New Jersey wins one of their home games, but it just feels like with no Jack Hughes, it's like I know they survived without him, and they do have Nico Hischier, but this is not the Devils team we thought they would be at the beginning of the season. It's kind of a shame.
Okay, let's go in the West here. We got a matchup that might be kind of that trap kind of series. Winnipeg, they win the President's Trophy, and yet they get a St. Louis Blues team that was the hottest team basically since Jan 1. And when have we seen that before? Oh, wait, 2019 when the Blues went on a crazy run and won the Cup. Ryan, you seen any similarities between that Blues team, and should Jets fans be a little worried that, St. Louis is a team of destiny once again?
I do, and it's too bad because I really like the Jets, and I think the Jets have been kind of like underrated as contenders, even though they're the President's Trophy winner. And like nobody's really talking about them as a serious contender, and I think it's a little baffling. But yeah, that Blues team, like you think about how they're constructed. They have guys with experience. They have guys that are in the primes of their careers. Robert Thomas has been so good for them. They have so much depth. Like Zach Bolduc had a surprisingly good rookie season. They bring in Jimmy Snuggerud, and I don't know how much we'll see him necessarily, but you need those depth weapons. And you've got a Jordan Binnington who, when the games matter, all of a sudden he turns into Jacques Plante or Ken Dryden. And I would be a little scared if I'm the Jets because you have a hot team that like they're feeling great right now. And if you're Winnipeg, you're like, seriously? Like, we did everything right this year. Like, we finished first overall. We should have a nice matchup. How come we don't get to play like Calgary? Instead, it's like, no, you got to play the Blues, who are talented, heavy, experienced, and, have a goaltender that just won the most important tournament of the last, 30 years. So good luck with that.
Good luck with that, indeed. And no Nikolai Ehlers for the Jets. Yeah. At least, he's week to week, so we'll see what that status is. Steve, is Ryan right? Is Binnington does he have the edge in this one? Is, the playoff or the NHLPA had their player poll released earlier this week, and I was surprised that I think Vasilevskiy and Bobrosky were ahead of Hellebuyck. Like, yeah, what do we think? Does Jordan Binnington actually have the edge over a guy who's going to be a 2-time Vezina back-to-back winner right now?
Yeah, it's hard to say that. I mean, as much like I love Binnington at the Four Nations, he's kind of a bend don't break type of goalie, but he does find ways to win. I'll give you that. I just feel like Hellebuyck, he's got a couple of things. He's got the revenge factor of Four Nations. He doesn't want to lose to Binnington again, and he also had a terrible playoff last year. So with his 2 Vezinas and his President's Trophy this year, I think he's going to come into this thing, and he ran into a buzzsaw last year. Was it Colorado? I think it was Colorado.
Yeah.
And so I think this year the Blues, to me, and I'll invoke the same reference I did, although the 2019 example might fly in the face of it, but this is a team that went on a really hard charge really late. What was it, like 11 or 12 in a row that they won? Again, I feel like that's a hard thing to maintain on into the playoffs. And I think Hellebuyck and the Jets will be ready for them. And I think that I would give them the edge. So in answer to your question about Binnington, sure, anything's possible, but I like Hellebuyck over Binnington in this one.
All right, real quick. So what's your prediction?
I'm taking the Jets in 6.
Okay. I'm doing Jets in 6 as well, Ryan.
I'll go Jets in 7, but it'll be good for Winnipeg.
I hope this next series goes 7. Colorado, Dallas, which, aside from Battle of Ontario, maybe even with the Battle of Ontario being mentioned, this could be the best series, not only of the first round, of the entire playoffs. Like, this has Western Conference Final written all over it. That being said, not some great news for Dallas. Jason Robertson, I don't know what his health update's going to be, as, everything seems to be murky. Like, I don't believe anything that anyone says right now. Guys are week to week, day to day. Are they going to play? Are they not? Until the actual game starts, I don't believe any of it. That being said, Miro Heiskanen is out. Jason Robertson is now questionable, I guess, at best. Tyler Seguin is coming back, so that's a good thing. I still don't see any way that Dallas really beats Colorado. Ryan, how do the injury situations affect Dallas? Because I know you've been high on the Stars basically for the last 5 years, maybe. But what do you think this is gonna mean for this team?
Yeah, it's really vexing because I think there was reports. I think our own Emma Lincoln was saying that Jason Robertson had a brace on after that game against Nashville when he got hurt. And unless they're playing some amazing mind games and they're like, "Hey, Jason, just put on a brace and everybody will think you're really hurt," that would be Machiavellian, and I would love it. But it's probably not true. He probably is just injured. To me now, it's like a bridge too far. It's like Miro Heiskanen. I mean, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, and again, a player that I think is somehow still underrated because he doesn't put up flashy numbers. He just does everything else really well. But without him, and if you don't have Robertson, who's one of your best goal scorers, it was always going to be a tight series. And now, to me, it's like, okay, well, I mean, it's Colorado, right? It's Nathan McKinnon. It's Cale Makar and Devon Taves. It might be Gabriel Landeskog. And like, how can you not be motivated by your captain returning for the first time in like 3 years for one more cup run? So I think the injuries are enough of a factor. Tyler Seguin being back, that's great for Dallas, and that's kind of a nice motivator for them. But if they're going to have a chance in this series, now I feel if you're subtracting Robertson and adding Seguin, it's going to be much more defensive, right? Like, Seguin has become more of a two-way player in the latter stages of his career. So if Dallas has any shot at winning this, I think it's a lot of 2-1, 3-2 games. And I don't know anymore if that's viable based on their lineup. So I'm going to do an early prediction now and say Colorado in 6. But man, I wish the Stars were at full strength because otherwise I think I probably still would have taken them.
Well, one guy they do have is Mikko Rantanen. And you've kind of jokingly called this the Rantanen Bowl, Ryan. Steve, does Rantanen, will he be motivated enough playing against his former team, a team that, I don't know what happened, how the contract negotiations broke down, but he wanted to stay in Colorado. Now he's playing that former team after going through Carolina, forcing a trade to Dallas. Is one guy enough to kind of spur this team, Dallas Stars team, onto victory?
Oh, at playoff time, one guy's never enough, but he's certainly a big asset to the Dallas Stars, and he's got to be a motivated guy because he can't be very happy about the way things ended in Colorado. He probably would have liked to have gone wire to wire, but talks didn't go the way he wanted, and so that's why the movement started. And just a terrific player, though, and I think that Colorado misses him. He's obviously had some great times with the Avs, winning a cup there. So he'll be a good and motivated character out there for the Dallas Stars. But Colorado's just they're such a deep team. Nathan McKinnon, as good as it gets, he's in the discussion for the best player alive. And I look at the additions that they've made since last season when they had a disappointing playoff. You know, they've got 2 new goalies. They've got Eric Johnson, Charlie Coyle, Martin Nakash. They got Brock Nelson. Like, they've done a lot of good things. So I think that that's a team that is motivated again based on what has happened in the past recently. And I think they're going to be a real handful. I agree. It's going to be the 2-3, man. It's tragic to see the 2-3 go down the way it is, like it is in the East. But I do like Colorado in this series.
All right, real quick, we got 2 more series in the West to wrap up here and talk about. Vegas, Minnesota. You know, no one's really talking a whole lot about Vegas. I feel like they just kind of quietly went about business and sealed up first place in the Pacific. That being said, they're going to get a Minnesota team that, unlike Dallas, is getting players back in a meaningful way with Joel Eriksson Ek and Kirill, the Thrill, Kaprizov, who's looking like he missed no time at all. Steve, how do you see this series shaking down for us here? Because, you know, the Golden Knights seem like, I don't know, do they have any weaknesses?
Oh man, I don't think so. And I love a Bruce Cassidy coach team.
Mm-hmm.
He's just got such good balance, even himself. You know, he's a offensive defenseman, Ottawa 67 boy in the back in the day. But he's
Butch.
Gotta love Butch. And yeah, he's just one of those guys, you know, that is the right balance of communicator and hard ass when he needs to be. And I just think he's got that team, as he does with all his teams, back to the Bruins. He always has them well prepared, and he's getting great contributions, newer contributions from guys like Jack Eichel, who's playing out of his mind right now. Like, he is, we're starting to see now, okay, oh yeah, that's why we were talking about him 1-2 with McDavid at the draft years ago. That's the guy we're looking at now. He's playing his best hockey of his career, and Vegas has so many of the assets they did from their cup year a couple of years ago. So yeah, I think Vegas is in very, very good shape.
How about you, Ryan? 2 years ago, you're covering that Cup final with Vegas and Florida. That was just an amazing Golden Knights team. Any similarities between that team that won the championship and this year's edition?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they're big, they're smart. You know, they have amazing two-way players. You know, you think about, you know, as Steve said, the elevation of Jack Eichel in recent years, and then, you know, Mark Stone has always been that consummate, you know, potential Selke guy, you know, year in and year out. I do think Vegas is kind of like under the radar there, because you know, you're in the same division as Edmonton, who have been completely mercurial all year, but do have Draisaitl and McDavid. For Minnesota, I just think that this is too strong an opponent. And with the Wild, we are seeing a team that is on the rise. Like, they've always been that sort of mushy middle team. But I do think, you know, they're getting into a better cap situation. You know, like the Suter Parise buyouts will soon be in the rear view mirror. Zeev Bouillon coming in, I think, is going to be massive. Like, you think about a defense core of the future with Bouillon and Brock Faber, like, that's fun. And I think that's going to be great for Minnesota fans. And then, as you mentioned, Kaprizov coming back, you know, it's too bad he missed the time he did this year. But I do think this is going to be a short series, like Vegas in 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that, you know, brighter skies are ahead for the Wild.
So Vegas in 4, or you got Vegas in 5?
You know what? I'll go 5.
I'm going Vegas in 5, Steve.
I'll go 4 then. How about that?
There you go.
If I could choose 3, I would choose 3, right? All right. LA, Edmonton. This is what, the 13th or 14th time these teams have played in back-to-back playoffs here. So they're getting kind of tired of each other, I'm sure. And, you know, I'm sure LA is getting tired of losing to Edmonton. Lucky for the Kings. They look a lot stronger, and Edmonton looks a lot more hobbled. Steve, are injuries going to be the big factor in this series?
Yeah, I mean, to not have Ekholm available, and you worry about McDavid and Draisaitl. Of course, they're going to play, but are they fighting through nagging injuries? Are they going to be at their best? And then, you know, compounding things with what LA is, and that is this wicked home team, and they do have the home advantage in the series, so that's massive. And you factor in the season series, LA's got that, a couple of shutouts as well. So I just think, as they say, revenge is a dish best served cold. I think this is finally LA's time, boys.
Yeah, I'd never liked to bet against Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, who's having just a, Hart Trophy worthy season. That being said, I wonder about Edmonton's goaltending, as I always do, and as all of, the province of Alberta probably does. Stuart Skinner was able to kind of turn it on for the playoffs, but Ryan, how do you see the goaltending battle shaking up? Because, it's hard not to say that the Kings don't have the edge here, especially with the way that Darcy Kemper has played all year long.
For sure. And for me, when I look at this Los Angeles team and asking like what's different this time, you get a little bit more maturity from young guys like Byfield and Brant Clark, and you get a rejuvenated Drew Doughty, who's obviously the consummate veteran there. But I look at that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade for Darcy Kemper that really benefited both Los Angeles and Washington. And it just feels like the Kings forward core makes more sense now. It's like when they first got Dubois, I was like, oh man, they're going Kopitar, Deneau, Dubois. That's incredible. And it didn't work out. Now it kind of makes more sense where you have those two aces, in your top six that are, again, both of them, Selke candidates potentially. And, a team that if anybody was going to be able to shut down or at least slow down McDavid and Draisaitl, it looks like the Kings. They're a really big team, and their defense core has some underrated guys like Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, who that's their job, is to just make sure that forwards don't get to Kemper, and Kemper has proven that he can make those stops. I think he's got a .922 save percentage. Last year they had Cam Talbot, who was at .913. So right there, that's market improvement. And I just think that this is the year that the Kings triumph over the Oilers. Would they triumph next year? Maybe not, but it feels like this particular set of circumstances leads to a Los Angeles series win. I'll say in 6.
6. Yeah, I'm saying LA in 6 as well. Steve?
Kings in 5.
Kings in 5. All right. Well, let's look at our, Stanley Cup bracket, as you will, and who do we see in the final? I'll start things off. Tampa Bay for the East, Colorado from the West. Yes, we got a rematch. What was that? 2000 and
nice.
What was that? 2022, 23, 22
years
I think,
ago,
right?
yeah.
So one of those years. Feels like it was yesterday. I don't know why, but yeah. And I will say, I'm going to say Avs over King, or Avs over Bolts.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Steve, what do you think?
Well, you may want some separation to go to Ryan because I got the exact same two teams, but I will take I'll take a different team in the final. I like the Lightning. It's bothersome that they have to get by Florida, and you made a really good point out of the gate, Michael, about what will be left of the winner of these 2-3 matchups in both conferences. But I still have to go with the team I believe is most poised to win it all. And so I got the Lightning.
All right. Well, I'm going a completely different tack from you guys, so that'll be nice. I'm going to take Winnipeg over Toronto. I'm going to take two teams. Yeah, I think
coming back home, baby.
Yeah, they're getting, it's like the war of attrition won't be as bad for them because, as Steve mentioned, those 2-3 matchups are really brutal. So you're going to get, a Colorado Dallas winner and a Florida Tampa winner that probably just went through hell. And then you have at least with Toronto, they're going to have a weaker conference opponent, because the Metro hasn't been much this year outside of, I guess, Washington. But yeah, I'm going with two top teams and their Canadian teams. Let's see it happen.
Well, I don't know what year it was, but there was a time when on the hockey news it says Winnipeg Jets, your Stanley Cup champions.
Yes.
What was that, like 12 years ago?
It was a Future Watch episode, when they were starting to roll up. And ironically, I think one of the players on the cover was Patrick Laine. But don't worry about that. They're still a very good team now, so it all works out.
No, well, it just took a while for that prediction to come true, right?
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Listen up, hockey players. You do not need to drop a fortune on hockey sticks when you can snag a pro-level composite stick at stix.com. Yes, you heard that right. That is stix.com. Head over and check it out. Ryan, this is your favorite segment of the show. What do we got here, Ryan?
We got some rapid fire.
There we go. We're going to have to be rapid because this has been a long episode. It feels like it's flying by. All right, let's start things off. Steve, which player will lead the playoffs in scoring?
Kucherov. Do we want single answers? Do you want a little information behind that?
Well, with Kucherov, you probably don't have to say anything. All you have to look at is how productive this guy's been in the regular season and in the playoffs. But give me one little reason why. Is it because of the line he plays on? Obviously, you're picking the Lightning to go deep, but anything else that you want to mention about Kuch?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. You know, you go for the guy that's going to be on the team you think is going to go the furthest and gets the most opportunity to create points. And I'm just a big Kucherov fan. The guy has already proven that he's elite come playoff time, and so that's a natural for me.
All right, Ryan, you got the number one pick in the playoff pool. Who are you choosing?
Well, since I'm taking Winnipeg to go all the way, I'm going to go Kyle Connor. Speed kills.
Jersey speed.
Yeah, he's had an incredible season for the Jets. And why not? I mean, their leading scorer, might as well take him as their leading scorer for the playoffs as well.
All right. Since the 2014-15 season, only 3 of the Stanley Cup winners, have been from the Western Conference, one-sided. It's been Colorado, it's been Vegas, and St. Louis. So question, Ryan, will this year's winner be coming from the East or the West?
I'm going to go with the West. I mean, I'm going Winnipeg, but if Colorado won it, I wouldn't be surprised either. So, yeah, I think the West could take it this year.
Steve, obviously you picked Tampa to win it all, but if Tampa goes out, is the East still strong enough where a team should, challenge whether it's Colorado or someone else?
Yeah, I'm high in Carolina. They got that easy first round. By the way, that first round with the Devils would be, if I had to cancel one series from the whatever standpoint, I'd be happy to take that one out. But I do think it's going to be a quick series, and I think that'll help them along the way. And Brendan Moore has knocked on the door so many times with his group. I feel like they'll be probably your runner-up in the East. So if it's not Tampa, I'd go Carolina.
All right. Well, we were talking about the 2019 St. Louis Blues and the incredible run they went on. Is there a team that we see going on, maybe not a win it all outright kind of run, but whether it's Montreal, whether it's St. Louis or Minnesota or someone else, do we see a team going on that kind of unlikely Cinderella run? Steve?
Well, I certainly worry that the Senators are going to enter the playoffs in a sort of a, whether it's conscious or subconscious, just happy to be there mode. But if they show up with that youthful energy they have, kind of supported and insulated by the veterans that Steve Stais has brought in, including a goaltender who has a capability of stealing series, your 23 Vezina winner, and Linus Ullmark, I believe, and I know that, that'll be perceived as a homer take, but I really think the Senators, if they do something special in the first round, then look out for the rest of the playoffs.
Ryan?
I'll say, even though I have the Jets going all the way, like I could see St. Louis making a long run as well, based on, how they've been playing and just the makeup of that team.
It's hard for me not to think the Habs in this category, just because, it wasn't that long ago that they did go on a run. They beat the Leafs in the first round and then made it all the way to the final against the Lightning in that pandemic year. So I'm going Habs all the way. Similar kind of question. Who do you see as the unlikely playoff hero, Ryan?
Originally, I said Thomas Harley on Dallas, but since I don't like Dallas' chances as much anymore, I'm going to go Cole Perfetti in Winnipeg. Especially with Ehlers out, they're going to need some secondary offense, and Perfetti is one of their young guys that I think could really step up.
Steve?
I think I'd go, and it's getting harder and harder to call him under the radar, but I think, people think of Brandon Hagel as that good two-way player, okay offense, but his stats this year are off the charts. He's having a career year. I think he's like one of the best all time in terms of number of 5-on-5 goals he scored. And that's key at playoff time because we know referees put their whistles in the pocket. So if he still qualifies, I'd go Brandon Hagel of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Awesome. All right. Last question here. Which Stanley Cup, in quotations, favorite do we see going out the earliest? Jets, Caps, who do we got?
I would probably say the Caps. Maybe in round 2. If they met Carolina, I think they would probably be the one where I'd be the most worried about.
Steve?
Can we agree Florida's a Stanley Cup contender?
Oh, for sure. Back-to-back finals appearances.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you just wanted the 1 seeds and things, but I would say, I mean, since I'm taking Tampa to win it all, surely Florida would be my pick as a cup contender that's going to disappoint. So, it's that 2-3. Oh, the 2-3. But, Panthers are my pick.
Yeah, we're going to see upsets, obviously. I think that's the beauty of the first round. I don't think there's a better, first round in all of sports than it is in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Listen, we're going to have all the action at thehockeynews.com. Make sure you bookmark that page as well. Starting on Saturday, running every night through the playoffs, fingers crossed, we're going to have a live stream. So it's going to be called Playoff Live Frenzy. After the big game of the night, make sure you log on to thehockeynews.com, find our link, and check it out because we're going to be breaking down that game and talking playoffs all the time. For Steve Warne and Ryan Kennedy, I'm Michael Traikos. This was The Big Show. Enjoy the playoffs, folks. We're finally here.